Many of us often believe that we must be self-reliant in everything we do. We think that asking others for help means we are weak, incapable, or even failures. But the truth is quite the opposite. No one succeeds alone. On the journey to reach our dreams, there are times when we face difficulties, stumble, and run out of energy or resources. And it is precisely at those moments that courageously asking for help can be the turning point that changes our whole life. Asking for help does not mean giving up or lacking ability. It is a sign of maturity. It shows that you know your limits and are willing to learn, connect, and collaborate. Sometimes just a piece of advice, a helping hand, or a small action from others can help you get through the hardest phase and keep moving forward. If you try to carry everything alone, you will quickly become exhausted. But if you share the burden at the right time, you will find yourself going farther and standing stronger. Ultimately, success is not just a destination, but a journey built on relationships, gratitude, and mutual support. In a peaceful small village where most people live by farming, there was a young man named David. At just 23 years old, David was devoted to carpentry, a craft he learned from his late father. Every day, he worked diligently in a small, rundown wood workshop with a leaking roof filled with old chairs and scratched tables waiting to be repaired. Alone, he both made furniture and served customers, bargaining with buyers who always tried to pay less. Despite hard work, David earned just enough to buy bread, some soup, and a few pieces of firewood for winter. But that didn't stop his big dreams. Each evening after a tiring day, David would sit by the small window, gazing at distant hills and imagining a different future, where he could open his own spacious furniture store, a place people would come from everywhere just to buy the products he made by hand. Many laughed at this dream, thinking David too poor, not even able to afford good materials, so how could he think big? But David didn't let those words discourage him. He believed that as long as he tried and never gave up, the dream would come true. David's life was far from easy. Every day he woke early, opened his workshop alone, started making tables, chairs, repairing old furniture, and serving village customers. Though he worked hard, his earnings were meager. Customers bargained hard, materials were expensive, and time was never enough. After deducting costs for wood, nails, glue, and basic food, David had only a few coins left, not enough to save for anything bigger. What tired David most was not just the hard work, but the constant uncertainty. Every time he managed to save a little, trouble struck. One day it was the leaking roof requiring new tin sheets. Another time the old planer broke down. Worse, his mother, his only remaining relative, often fell ill, forcing him to spend his scarce money on medicine and doctor visits. These unexpected expenses shattered David's savings plans many times. Still, he didn't give up. Every day, despite exhaustion and pressure, David quietly worked on. Deep down, he believed every hardship was temporary, and if he persevered long enough, his dream would come closer, bit by bit. In David's small village, people were used to simple, practical lives. They valued safety and stability more than grand dreams. So when David shared his wish to open a big furniture store, many laughed or mocked him. An old farmer blinked. "David, you don't even have enough money for decent wood. How can you dream of a big store? Fix your collapsing roof first." Those words cut deep into David's pride. But instead of getting angry or quitting, he stayed silent. He understood no one saw what he imagined: a spacious workshop, quality products with a personal touch, customers from everywhere trusting his skills. To others, it was fanciful, but to David, it was his motivation. He didn't try to argue or convince anyone. Instead, he let his actions speak. Every carefully made chair, every finely carved table, all contained the faith and determination he had for his dream. Though underestimated, David never wavered. He knew the road to success was not easy, and the more doubted, the more he had to prove them wrong. One day, while fixing the leg of an old chair, a stranger entered his workshop. It was Mr. Aziz, an experienced merchant known for his keen eye and respect for quality. After inspecting David's work, he nodded and said, "You have skillful hands. I need a large dining table for my family. Can you make it in a week?" David hesitated but nodded. This was the biggest order he had ever received, and the payment was considerable. Excited, David started work the next day, but by the third day, he faced a serious problem. He ran out of wood. He hurried to his usual supplier in the village, but with winter approaching, wood prices had doubled. With the money he had, he could only buy half the materials needed. David was confused and dared not ask Mr. Aziz for more money, fearing to lose credibility. Desperate, he turned to a villager named Wed to ask for a loan, but Wed just laughed coldly and refused. Your mind is full of fanciful dreams. Returning to the workshop empty-handed, David sat staring at the unfinished pile of wood. He began to wonder, was his dream too far-fetched? Was he stubbornly chasing something not meant for him? That night, in his cold little house, David sat silently at the table, looking at the last few coins left. His mind tangled between failure and the desire to keep going. At that moment, he remembered his mother's words. David, great things always start with small steps. Don't fear a hard beginning, just don't give up. Those simple words sparked a ray of hope in his darkest hour. The next day, David gathered some small folding chairs he had made, simple but sturdy and beautiful. He carefully packed them and took them to the city market, a strange, bustling place very different from his quiet village. David knew it was a gamble. If he didn't sell, he might not even have money to return home. Under the blazing sun, among hundreds of stalls, David set up a small booth in a corner. At first, no one noticed him, but around noon, a well-dressed woman stopped, examined each chair, praised the meticulous details, and decided to buy them all. With the money earned, David was deeply moved. He immediately returned to the village, bought the remaining wood, and continued finishing Mr. Aziz's table. His heart burned with belief. As long as he didn't give up, there was still hope. Just weeks after completing the table for Mr. Aziz, David's reputation began to spread. The meticulousness and delicacy of his products attracted attention, especially from nearby towns and villages. One day, a big businessman from the city came to David's small workshop. He got straight to the point. I want to order 10 dining tables like the one you made for Mr. Aziz. Deadline, 1 month. If you can do it, you will receive a large payment. David was stunned. This was the opportunity he dreamed of, a turning point to make his furniture store dream come true. But he also understood the challenge ahead. His workshop was small, materials expensive, and most importantly, he was alone. No workers, no modern machines, and time was extremely tight. Yet, David did not hesitate. With determined eyes, he said, "I can do it." That night, David sat alone at his drawing table, planning every detail, every step to take. He calculated working hours, the amount of wood needed, and even the breaks he would have to sacrifice. Inside David was a struggle between reason and passion. He knew he was stepping into a harsher challenge than ever before. But it was at that moment he realized, the bigger the dream, the more you must devote yourself, even if you have to carry everything alone. The plan was ready, determination set. But when starting work, David soon faced a harsh reality. He didn't have enough money to buy the high-quality wood needed for the large order. Previous days had spent nearly all his money. Now, to fulfill the dream, he had to make a painful decision. David opened a small wooden box under his bed, took out an old watch, the only keepsake left from his father, the first teacher who taught him carpentry. It was not just a watch, but memories, love, pride, and silent encouragement through the years. Holding the watch in his hand, he hesitated a long time, but finally went to a jewelry store in the city, bitterly exchanging that keepsake for enough money to buy wood. Back at the workshop, David threw himself into work with everything he had. He worked from dawn until dark. Meals became simple, sometimes just a piece of bread and a cup of water. Sleep was incomplete, often ending on the workbench with cracked hands and dark circles under his eyes. His body was exhausted, but in his heart burned a faith. If he dared to sacrifice the most precious thing, there was no reason to stop. And every scratch on his hands was proof of a passion never cooled, to live with his own dream. One rainy afternoon, in the cluttered woodshop filled with sawdust and wood, David sat slumped on a chair, hands bleeding from nonstop work. Sleepless nights, rushed meals, and heavy pressure had nearly drained him. At that moment, his mother quietly came in. She looked at her son with worried and sorrowful eyes. "David," she called softly. He raised his tired, red-rimmed eyes. She came closer, placed a hand on his shoulder, and gently said, "My son, I know you're trying for your dream. I'm proud of you." You are watching the video on YouTube Tales Unfold.